Hey everyone, this is Olay from Laddering Your Success, and you're listening to the LYS Podcast.
Good afternoon. Happy Sunday to everyone. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. This is our first time trying to do, like you said, live on the road, and we're trying to take this mentoring places, be mentor places, and all that good stuff. And so it's interesting and different. I kind of like the vibe music in the back, even though it messes up our audio, but it's all good.
Big fan of elevator music.
So what we talking about today, man? What are we talking about today?
For some time now, actually a couple of weeks here, about friends, keeping friends. What do you attract? What is your needs? As a teacher, I've noticed that a lot of kids have been dealing with things that may affect them, that for better or for worse, that may affect them in the classroom. A lot of it is, to me, we're playing adult games with kids. We don't have the capacity to handle those issues. So how do we deal with those issues? How do we work on those things to deal with them in a more mature manner and to have a common sense approach to it? If you ask my students, what is the number one thing that we talk about in class? It's not a context. It's not a subject. It's literally common sense. What is the most logical thing to do in a certain situation? And that's kind of what we do. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. Okay. So before we do that, I just want to make sure my audio is good. Is the audio good? Is that good level right there? It's good? Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, much better. Yeah, man. I think, when you talk about that, like finding relationships in different generations is like super key, right? We talk about having that person that you have a relationship with that is above you, but having a relationship with someone who's below you. And we don't mean that in a sense of negative sense or that somebody's better than you or you're better than somebody else. But the reality is there are people who've gone ahead of us. There's a quote that says, "We stand on the shoulders of giants," right? And so the thing is, we got to leverage those relationships, and those relationships are really important. And when we don't have what we consider a multi-generational view of life, right, we end up looking at life only in our stage of life instead of all the different stages of life. So what ends up happening is, you're 16, 17, 18, and, you get hit with, maybe your boyfriend or girlfriend, left you, cheating on you, something, you know what I mean? And because you're only thinking of your stage of life, you're not thinking of like life as a whole, right? And so those things affect you deeper when you're in that like category where you're not able to see like, oh, wait a second, this person who I know, they went through that struggle, their significant person left them and they were able to make it out on the other side of that, and then same thing when it comes to jobs and careers and finding jobs and careers. If you don't have a relationship with somebody who's older than you, it's very hard to acquire those skill sets on your own amongst your peer group. You know what I mean? And so that's why I think this conversation is super important.
Soap operas in my classroom this year, and the thing that gets me about it is, I just want to sit them down and say, I feel like even when we were kids, people used to always tell us, "Oh, when you get older, you're gonna look back." It's like, unfortunately, it's the same. It hurts because they're not going to listen, but you still have to say it. you still have to. Oh, no worries. So yeah, that's the crux that we do. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I'm sorry. All right. So talking about family, one of the things we talked about last week is we said that you can't choose your family, right? You can't choose your family. But guess what you can't choose? We have those relationships with folks. We may talk to friends more than we even talk to our family. But we still have to recognize the importance of having family, right? Because you share a genetic code with your brother or with your sister. Even though you're closer with your friend, you siblings are bound by something much, much stronger. And that's family. That's that Vin Diesel thing from Fast and Furious. Family. Remember that rock song? You know the rock got the song. It's about power. It's about it's about family. Sorry.
Who lived on a track?
Well, people don't remember this. When The Rock was still wrestling back in the day, he had a song with Wyclef Jean.
Really?
The Rock had a song with Wyclef Jean called "It Doesn't Matter."
I think I do
He had a
remember
song
that.
with Wyclef Jean, and I remember because I was a big Rock fan in middle school. There's a song out there. There's a picture of him in like one of those Versace shirts, and he's like,
Yeah.
Wyclef Jean is like when you walk in the street and someone talks like, "What do you do?" It doesn't matter. So it's an actual.
I think I remember that.
Yeah. Just being a 90s, early 2000s kid. That's all. All right. So as you can see here, we got a picture of a magnet, right? We got a picture of a magnet because I want us to discuss it, right? It's a magnet, but we are magnetic. We attract what we are. Okay. We attract what we are. Who you are at the moment right now is displayed by what we do. People are either attracted by what we do or they're repelled by it, right? You either do things that naturally attract people to you, right? And you have like things in common, or you do certain things and people are repelled by it. They don't really want to be around you. They want to stay away from you based off of those things. One of the things I want you to do is I want you to look around you. Not right now, not literally, but I want you to look at your friends. Think about your friends around you, right? Based off of what we put inside of ourselves, what we expose ourselves to, based off of the people. If you put yourself in a positive mindset, right? If you do good, if you say good things, if you listen to good things, right? Watch shows that don't necessarily have too much violence or all those other things. If you expose yourself to good, put that good out, and that is what you will attract. You know, just like we said with so many things, if you do that negative, if you do that with things that aren't necessarily the best for you, if you put in that, if you witness to bad things, if you listen to things that aren't necessarily good, it's going to affect who you are, what you say, what you do. People are going to be attracted to that as well. And they're going to be people who are repelled by that too. The same for good. Right? So that's just one of those important things that we have to keep in mind. And I know, especially as a student, it's very easy to say, I'm not going to do it. It's just the natural thing for us is to just not do the right thing or to do the thing. We see things like that as corny. Back when we were younger, they used to say, "Oh, you're after school special." Remember? They would call you like an after school special. This guy's being like an after school special. This guy's being soft. He's being a punk. One of the most important things I always tell my students all the time is hurt people hurt people. A lot of times people say and do things, they don't even know why, right? But what's going on is they're just exposed to so much. All they know is to give hurt. That's the only thing they know how to give. The words and actions and influences of others affect you and me. So, how do we attract good? How do we attract good, right? Because that's what we want. We're not going to try and think about things of how to attract bad. We're not doing that. We're going to ask ourselves how. One of the first things you can do is you can smile often. I know it sounds simple, but it is that simple. When you smile often, this gives people the impression that you're open. Just think about meeting someone for the first time and they've got a frown on their face. Would you really be inclined? Would you really like to have a full conversation with them? If I meet you for the first time and I smile and you're looking at me like I did you wrong, like I stole $50 from you, I'm going to keep smiling, but I'm going to slowly move away from you. Because your energy, everything you're telling me is you're not open. You're closed off. I had a story here that I wanted to tell you. In 2011, I was an intern for the Houston Texans. I worked for the Houston Texans, and until today, it may have been the greatest year of work I've ever done in my life, maybe next to teaching, even though I was only getting paid minimum wage.
Not next to LYS. No, I'm joking.
But you know, it's football. It's football, and it's a professional team in Texas.
when you stopped working for the Texans, we were all sad. We was all sad.
So the reason why Festus said we were all sad is of working for the Texans is even though I was an intern, I still got season tickets. So guess what? You know, when I eat, who else eats? We eat. My boys eat. So I mean, we got to go to me, you, Clemente, got to go to the first ever playoff game in Houston Texans history. We got to go watch that. And
Yeah.
a couple of other games, a couple of other events. And so,
When they had their tent in the rodeo, we got a chance to go to that.
Wow, I forgot about that. Yeah.
You was hooking it up, bro. You was hooking it up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the little I had, I made sure my boys eat. I'm gonna say this word to your moms right there. But when I was working with the Texans, there was a lady who worked in the McNair group, which is kind of like the offices where like the owners, where all his other businesses, I guess you could say. And so I met this lady a couple times because they used to do like Bible study, and I've heard people talk about it. I think I've heard her talk about it. She said, even when she's having a bad day, she always forces herself to smile. She would just force herself to smile. She would literally just smile, start smiling. And the reason why she would do that is because she said, there's no way if you smile long enough that you can't stay mad. So even if you're mad, even if you're super mad, just smile. Even if it's a crooked smile, even if it looks like a smile, people look at you and they're like, man, this person is tripping. They are not happy.
That's an amazing outlook and perspective.
Absolutely, man. And I tried it. I did it for like a good year or two after I left, and I actually need to go back to that because it really worked. Like when I was super stressed on the job, why am I even mad? You're working, you're doing, you're making a decent living. Like, what are you really upset about? And so that's one of those things to really do. It seems very simple, and it is, but it seems like the things that are most simple we seem to always forget. So keep that in mind. And I kind of had that hiding there in the back, but that's one of those key principles. Don't knock what you don't know, right? We talked about that a couple times. And that's one of the things that we always refer back to, those key principles here at Success. All right, next thing.
It's funny how we really live LYS, and it's weird. I was taking Maya to go see, my sisters yesterday. No. And I was like, dog, don't knock what you don't know. You know what I mean? Like, you're 4. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? But just again, that's such a powerful, simple truth. You know what I mean? Of just not knocking what you don't know. But yeah, let's hear what's going to happen next.
Absolutely. For sure. So the next thing, this is also key, man. This is also a very, 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 very good tip right here. And that is ask people about themselves. Ask people about themselves. Also, second thing, very simple. You would think, right? I remember I was reading something a couple of weeks ago that said the 4 H's. And I cannot remember the 4 H's, but it is really good. There's like 4 things to ask people about. The only one I do remember is heroes. It's like, ask someone who the heroes are and why they're the heroes. And I'm like, even though it was like 4 H's, just those questions, when you ask someone a question like that, first of all, it shows that you're really interested, as opposed to like, where are you from? What do you do? Which there's nothing wrong with that, but getting something like that makes someone really think, like go introspective, it shows that you're really trying to connect with the person, right? And it also will show you how many things possibly that y'all have in common. And that's awesome because I think that's one of the things we look for whenever we meet. That's part of what we do. We're sharing information. We're social beings. So we ask questions like, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Portland. Oh, which one? Portland, Maine, or Portland, Oregon? A lot of people don't know there's 2 Portlands. Or there's 2 Portlands. I'm from Portland, Oregon. What? You guys have a whole lot of food trucks. Yeah. You got a whole lot of breweries. Yeah. Just simple conversations. That's more for adults. For me. It's more student. I was just giving an example. But that's how easy it is. So it shows that you're open. It shows that you're generally interested in other person. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what it was. I'm not even trying to. I just remember one of them was 4 H's. But asking someone.
I was gonna say the 4 H's. Is it heroes, holidays? Is the holidays one of them? Like how were their holidays growing up?
I don't think it's holidays.
Oh, okay. Was
And
it
you know, it may not even be 4-H's. It may be something else.
okay, I'm thinking of something else then.
It's like, how do you track friends? How do you keep friends? Smile often. Ask them about themselves. Next day. Oops. It's kind of slow. So, how about that? All right, good. All right, over here. So we got a picture of a toothbrush, deodorant, a brush, and a bar of soap. What are we talking about? We're talking about, of course, hygiene, good hygiene. Another thing that seems simple, but trust me, I'm a 5th grade teacher. It ain't as easy as it seems. Okay. Good hygiene goes a long way. One of the things I've noticed here is when we're talking about good hygiene, these are things that prepare you for adulthood. One of the compliments, Daniel Hill, one of our partners, that's usually on the Zoom calls with us. People always tell him, teachers always tell him, man, Mr. Hill, you got some white teeth. And so the funny thing is, I'm like, dude, Mr. Hill, you really do have some white teeth. Like, what do you do? He was like, man, so I floss and I brush like 3 times a day, but I brush after lunch. I just go in the restroom and I brush after lunch. So guess what I do? I walk with my bag and I go into the restroom and I start brushing my teeth. That's just proper dental hygiene. And it's one of those things that we see people look over. But it goes a long way, right? Because one of the things you're gonna hear when you get older is, oh man, I really like him, I really like her. She's put well together. She's well put together, right? She takes care of herself. He takes care of himself, right? Those are the things that people say when you take that extra investment, that extra time to take care of yourself, people notice those things. And it makes them naturally gravitate towards you. It makes them want to do better themselves. So in that way, you're also becoming a leader. You don't even realize it, but you're becoming a leader. I don't cry about it. No. But when me and Festus, even David, when we were out of high school, one of the things that we used to do is, I don't know if you remember this, we used to talk about who had the best waves. Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember a story. I was working at Walmart, and me and Festus were in such a deep competition. We asked random people who had the better wave.
To this day, I have the better waves because he doesn't have hair. I'm sorry. I had to do it.
Let me tell you something. If I grew my George Jefferson horseshoe, all right, George Jefferson only have hair here. If I grew it out, people would be swimming in my ocean of waves. You hear me?
Wow.
I took much pride in my waves. All right. No, but it was awesome to see that. But that's one of those things, right? Think about it. We're having a competition over who's more well put together, who had the better. I know a big thing for me was this right here. Actually, I dealt with this a lot with the deodorant elsewhere. I actually used a secret for a while because it was the only deodorant. So people would ask me, they'd be like, what kind of deodorant do you use? And I would say, I can't tell you, it's a secret. But I did that purposely because I was using a secret, but they would never figure out what I was saying. So
yeah,
because it was the only one. It was the only one that worked on. But that's part of the growth process there, right? You got to go out and try those different things, see what works for you, see what doesn't work for you. And it's also good because if you have people around you that you can trust, you can ask them about it. Like, what do you use for this? What do you use for that? Right? You go back and forth. We do that for this. What do you use for that? So those things go a long way. There's a saying that the first impressions are lasting impressions, and this is very true. One of my close friends, the first time I met her, before we even said hi to each other, she said, "You smell really good," right? And so think about it. There are so many scents that can take you back. There's something that your mother used to make, or you had a grandma or grandpa that used to have a certain scent, and it takes you back to that moment. Just imagine, meeting someone for the first time and you have a scent that doesn't. They're gonna remember you. Our brains are amazing. Our brains can remember these things, like a scent or seeing something, hearing something, right? Or tasting something can take you back to a moment in time. So if you can have those lasting bonding moments with people, it can help you, right? And you can honestly make friends for life. Because that's what happened. That's what happened to me. So like I said before, first impressions are in today's busy society. So invest in mouthwash or a comb or a brush or some deodorant. It'll go a long way.
Yeah, man. I just remember being younger and like, not being able to really afford much. But, one thing that I noticed about like our parents was that even though we didn't have much, they really stressed taking care of what you did have. And I think sometimes as a young person, you get really frustrated, considering like, oh, I don't have much or, I don't have what I want. Right. And that can kind of almost trick you into being a bad steward of what you do have. So, the thing is, take care of what you have until you get more. Is the biggest thing that I would say, right? Is if and if you want to go like scriptural with it, and he who is a good steward of little will be a steward of much, right? He who is basically able to take care of a little can manage a lot. And so that's one of those things, man. It's just manage what you got until you get to that next level.
So funny you mentioned that. I remember I was just hanging around talking with some friends, and I had this car like a Mercedes Benz. And they're like, what is this? Like, well, if I can't treat this car like a Benz, if I can't treat this car like a $500,000 vehicle, what am I going to do when I actually get a $500,000 vehicle? Treat it like, if I treat this car like trash, I'm going to treat that car like trash.
That you bring up a good point, man. I remember when I was in the service, we get around and jack around and people were talking about their dream cars one day. And so they was like, what's your dream car? What's your dream car? And I remember I was like, oh, my dream car is a Honda Ridgeline on 22s. You know what I'm saying? And they was like, what? A Honda Ridgeline? Like that's not super expensive. That's not. And then they were talking about how basically I had low aspiration and basically kind of making these value decisions on my personhood based off of the things. And that's a big mistake we make in society, because what ends up happening is that means our personhood is then controlled by the things. And so I just want to encourage you guys, don't put yourself in that position, right? Because things come and go, right? And the thing is, even when I get my Honda Ridgeline on 22, because I'm going to get my Honda Ridgeline on 22s, I'm going to have me a Volkswagen truck, okay? I'm going to have me, a Jeep Gladiator. Trust me, I'm going to have all my stuff that I want. And they're going to cost half as much as your stuff, okay?
That's so true. It's so true. It's funny how as you get older, like, you're like, I never need it. And you're like, now I'm so brand loyal. I'm like, if I don't get an F-450, I'm gonna be brand loyal to Honda and Acura for the rest of my life. Because you know more now. Yeah, they don't tell you about those hidden costs of oil changes. And oil changes should never cost as much as it's funny how you learn some of those things as you get older. Right? So let's talk about, like, you got school, right? But a lot of people live in relationships called cooperative relationships. These are relationships that life places us in, right? That you will just naturally meet in more occurrences, right? Or different places. So this is where people get to see who you are in terms of your values, your habits. A few examples. That could be people that you meet while volunteering. I know I've met a lot of high school students that come to class. You can meet people, you have co-workers at your summer job or your regular job while you're in school, and some teachers. I've still got some professors that I still text and communicate with, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And having those relationships is like super duper key to growth, right? Because it's very, very interesting, especially now that giving back in education and working with schools and different types of things like that. Sometimes I get nervous that somebody that I was a student with will see me and be like, oh heck no, I'm not letting this dude get near any more kids, because I don't want him to ruin those kids' life the way his life is ruined. And the thing is, if they knew me now and they knew how much of an impact that they had on me and how different I am, I wouldn't have that feeling. And that's the thing. If I would have stayed in contact with them to let them know how much I was growing, it'd be a totally different thing, And I get it. Not everybody's able to stay in consistent contact with everyone. But sometimes you just have to, you just got to reach out and see. You remember Miss Jacobs?
Miss Jacobs.
Maybe you don't remember Miss Jacobs. So Miss Jacobs was a science teacher at Elsa. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we reached out on LinkedIn and touched base on LinkedIn, and it was just like crazy because it's like, she was like, wow, biology, exactly. And she's like, yo, like, wow, you're like an actual functioning human adult. And I probably would have been like, I would have thought the same thing. Like if I taught me, I'd have been like, there's no way he's gonna make it. There's no way. But bro, do you remember that? No, you weren't there. It was me and Lawal. Me and Lawal got suspended from riding the school bus. Did you ever hear this story?
No.
Okay, so me and Lawal, you remember, golly, what's his name? Mr. at the intermediate school. Dang, what intermediate school is that? We went to intermediate school. Anyway, me and Lawal got suspended from the school bus for running across Highway 59. And so this was the funny thing, because we see some kids like later doing it. And I was watching the news, they see them on the news, and like the school got in trouble. And I was like, the reason why we ran across 59 was because, oh, no. We got suspended from the school bus for standing while the bus was moving and not listening. And they showed us the video of us standing. So, bro, because we was talking about football. And so we were arguing. So me and Lawal would like stand up and argue. And you can see him in the video, like doing his arms. And then, so they suspended us from the school bus for that. So then they found out that we were running across 59 to get to the freeway. So this is like an 8-9 lane, one of the busiest highways in Houston, y'all. And we're running across this highway. And then the school finds out like we're running across this highway. So then we get in more trouble for running across the highway. But it was like, dude, to get around the highway, it's gonna take us 20, 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying? And additional and top of all that. And so, but long story short, I say all that to say, like, that's the image people have of you in their mind sometimes. And you got to go back and sometimes you got to be like, hey, I'm all right. I made it. Okay.
That's not me anymore. You got to tell them that's not me anymore. That's not me. No. That's such a good point. But it actually kind of brings us to like the last point, which is we're going to look over time. This is another type of relationship. And it's kind of cool because you get to see it now, right? Because they understand certain references, people that grew up in a time period together, right? It's usually a passive relationship. So, thanks. So, just looking over time, it's just crazy to see how the older generation kind of used to warn us about certain things. And I feel like it's kind of heated, right, for every generation. Of course, when you tell a young person to be careful of something, they usually disregard what you say until it comes back and it makes sense. What have you, I believe it's Generation Z, right? Generation Z is the first generation to be born. They were the first ones that had cell phones in their hands, like from birth.
We have a Facebook comment. This is why scripture says that life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. So I think this is when we were talking about things earlier. It says, great point, man. People are making value judgments based off of things you desire to have, not being expensive enough. That's wild. So yeah, thanks. Shout out Chris for that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. It reminds me, when you're a child, when you're younger, you think like a kid. As you get older, you start to think older and wiser. I used to really love BMWs until I found out about their performance, and, well, not their performance necessarily, but how much it costs to maintain them. And we already know ourselves. I'm to spend that money, knowing your expectations. It's actually, it doesn't really matter what generation you're born. Certain principles and rules that if you follow, you're going to have success. If you don't, it's going to be a lot harder for you. That's kind of why I put that last slide in there, so we can kind of see all the different cohorts that we've kind of been through. Right now, we've got people, small amount. I don't know about third, fourth, fifth grade, your generation offer. You can take something from every single one of those generations before you. Of course, you don't realize it now. There's to other countries, if you go back in time, there are certain principles and laws that, if followed, will lead to success. That's why they have certain sayings and quotes, right, that go a long way. I teach bilingual students, and it's so funny, so many of the things that I say, my students will look at me and say, my mom says that too. She just says the exact same thing, but she'll just say it in Spanish. And I'm like, yeah, we're all saying the same thing. We're all saying the same thing, right? Because those are laws and principles.
And that's a powerful thing that did hit me when it hit me, was about the transcendence of truth throughout societies, right? Is that when you look at a society and you say, man, why are these people doing so much better than these people? You'll start to see principles that are played out. And then you'll start to see principles that other person or people group doesn't have in place. You know what I mean? And it's really interesting because I think, especially as being like from an immigrant family, sometimes that hurts you in the first generation, right? Because your parents don't really understand the culture as much and they're just doing everything to survive. So they don't really have time to like really teach you or instruct you on like vicariously on the culture. But then all of a sudden, now that you've lived through that culture, you understand two different people groups, two different cultures, right? And so you could take the good and leave the bad from each of them. But I think that's also really valuable in terms of going back and sharing it with those people group to help enhance them, right? Because I'm a big believer that diversity is valuable because it challenges the status quo and it challenges your typical perspective, right? And there's nothing bad with change or doing things a different way based off of, diversity of thought. And sometimes there's a lot of people who think that's bad because like they win. Well, what if we said the truth wins? What if we said, values win? What if we said principle wins? Not necessarily they. And because when we get in that like competitive edge of us better than them, we don't really grow, right? The biggest person you need to be in competition with to grow is you. Right? Because the more that you challenge yourself, the more that you take on responsibility, the more that you own accountability about what's going on in your life, the more you're going to win. You cannot control other people. When you do that, you end up wasting a lot of time and energy. So let me let you finish. Like that just point hit me.
That's beautiful. Because I think if we go back, a lot of, especially like I don't know about you, but a lot of my childhood wasting people. I spent a lot of time chasing things that my parents told us. If someone who's like 2 years older than me would have said them, I would have just thought of it as gospel. I'd have been like, okay, this is it, right? But the whole time your parents are saying, we've been telling you this the whole time. But it's like, yeah, but you're my parents. I'm already at the age where most of the things you say go in one ear and out the other already. So I think that's like kind of like what you said. It's just.
Sorry, y'all. I'm over here distracted. I should not be. No, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I was just saying we're good to go.
We're good to
go. That's our mentoring session for today.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind that what's the saying? You don't do the saying that there are legitimate excuses for not going to college. There's no legitimate excuse for not getting an education. Thanks for joining us live from Starbucks today. So I'm somebody who's going to watch this later or hear this later. You're going to hear that background noise. Again, we apologize for that. We're trying to do something different, but yeah. So thank you.
And we'll take your advice. If you get any advice for when you go, we should do this more often.
The lives.
The lives.
Yeah, but we got to do it quieter.
On the messenger, send it to us. Send us a chat. Let us know.
All right.
Oh, you still there? Well, thank you so much for listening to the LYS podcast.